Hey everybody, it's Colton Stonebaugh with another episode of Inspire, where we're providing fearless B2B sales, marketing, and management insights. Today, we are joined by Brian Siegel at Standex. How you doing, Brian?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, another day in paradise. I think you said that when we first introduced you this
Thankful
morning.
to be here. Another day in paradise.
Absolutely.
The wonderful state of affairs with pandemics and economies and all kinds of shenanigans in the world. Yeah.
Well, I think you kind of bring that up, and I think that really frames it. We'll get a quick introduction here to Ron in a second, but with everything going on, the real crux, and a really popular thing in marketing, you have empathy and being human first. And I know that's something that's really passionate, that you're passionate about, and really looking forward to explore that. So maybe before we do that, Brian, you mind giving a quick intro on kind of who you are and what you do for Standex?
Yeah, I'm Brian Siegel. Like you mentioned, I'll verify my identity. Next, I've been here nearly 8 years, and I lead our global marketing efforts.
Okay. All right. And then we're also joined by Ron Gerlich. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing good, Colton. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. Another day in paradise, right?
That's right.
But so you mind giving a quick intro to the audience on yourself?
Sure.
And
Sure.
how you fit in?
I'm Ron Gerlach. I am a marketing director for advanced technology at Dean Houston. I've been here for a little bit over a year. Come from a B2B marketing background with manufacturers and advertising agencies. Standex and Brian is one of the main clients that I work with Dean Houston.
Thanks so much, Ron. So, Brian, throwing it back to you, you mentioned, we're going through some pretty unprecedented times, to save the marketing cliches there. So somebody who's in charge of, running the marketing effort for a technical products company, a leading technical products company, how have you addressed that in your processes and your messaging? With everything being so, critical, people going through a lot of difficult things that maybe we never thought we'd go through. How important is that to you in how you approach the marketplace with Standex?
Well, a couple things, not to dice up individual words, but I personally am not handling that alone. And that's a good point. It's a we. And so there's a crossover with our marketing team, heavily with sales, development, HR, and so forth. And yes, you're right. It's interesting times for all, individually, families, workplaces, schools. Companies are laying off, furloughing, and trying to exist. We're fortunate that within the manufacturing space, we in the various dynamic markets with the diverse products and capabilities that we engage the marketplace with, we're able to withstand headwinds, not perfectly. Our boat's rocking like everybody else's. Sales have reduced, but our heads above water, if you will. So first and foremost, without people, why are you here? You can do B2B, B2C. You can sell widgets to homes, to whatever it is. All the rave about AI and this and that. You still need people to make robots. You still need people on a line to produce components. Things are getting more automated and whatnot. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but at the end of the day, regardless of the situation, you mentioned empathy. I think empathy integrates throughout everything you should do as a person, at the workplace or at home and throughout. Obviously, you can't fire your family. Well, maybe you could take a break from them, but at workplaces, when you say you're a family, that's always an interesting notion. But it's having a harmony with, okay, here's the goal of the business. If we don't exist, why does marketing even matter? So you could do rebranding, integrated efforts, communications, tactical, this. But if you don't take care of your people and your customers, marketing, which is, to me, we have the easy work. We get to talk about the hard work and initiatives that people are leading, especially within manufacturing spaces, in that technical realm. But as far as the pandemic and how we're managing communications, it's thoughtfully, if I were to say it in one word, and making sure that we consider the implications of what we're doing and also the consequences of how a message is received internally and externally. So, like I mentioned a few moments ago, we're fortunate to be able to be in diverse markets with dynamic products and capabilities on the service and solution side, specifically with, engineering, design, tooling, and things that you aren't doing to produce a physical product, the steps to get there. So we're able to mitigate some of the challenges, but not fully, so
Yeah.
that's what with the state of things currently.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting, kind of insight there, is like, as a technical products company that really serves manufacturers, you're in a privileged position, that things are moving. The boat might be rocking, but things are definitely moving. So when you unpack that a little bit, it's like manufacturing and marketing to manufacturers, it kind of gets a stigma about it that it's always needs to be very utilitarian, focused on return on investment, thinking about the technical specs. But it sounds like from a philosophical and maybe, process standpoint, you don't buy into that so much, that you need to think about the humans on the other end and be empathetic. I mean, how does that manifest itself in maybe the messages you send out to the marketplace?
That's a good question and a nice point. I started my career off professionally, if you will, at GE out of college. But before that, I had, I mowed grass since I could push a lawnmower and turned that into shoveling snow after picking leaves in the fall and then moving into that. So I diversified my youthful business as a kid and then moved into doing labor jobs, and over that time, you go to school, you figure out what you like. I started in operations at GE, moved into sales and then marketing, and found, wow, I have this passion for engaging people, the creative side, but also aligning to a growth playbook or a marketing roadmap, if you will. So it was really interesting to I'm left-handed, so my right brain's always firing up, but I'm also logical and rational. So uniting those fronts helped combine for, steadfast movement and a purpose and a passion. Sometimes that work doesn't feel like work. So from the GE days and consulting after that, and when I say marketing, it's integrated. In today's world, when you say you're a marketer, it's not just you're not a graphic designer.
Yeah.
You're not just doing announcements and communications. You're not just a web builder. You don't just lead events and trade shows. Whereas, some people do that. They have a specific niche. But when we talk about the work I've done and where I'm at in the team that I'm privileged to lead, which is very great, by the way, and supported with wonderful vendors like Dean Houston. And we definitely put Ron to work, and also his team, Jamie, Chris, Sean, and others, and loop in Dale to make sure he's staying afloat and not falling asleep at his desk too. But when you look at marketing and just the overall efforts that are going on, how do you create value, solve problems, and drive growth? And so when I look back at how you engage the market, how do you go to answer your question? I started rambling.
No, it's great, because
Let me reflect. Let me make sure I didn't forget. Let me make sure I didn't forget your original question, which was, how do you maybe engage customers with human elements? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's a great way.
Let me throttle back and answer your question I love marketing. You guys are great. So I might, you can deter me from my rabbit holes. So
No, they're all good. I was taking mental notes on some things we're going to get back to, but yeah.
please do. I, you know, I know I don't know it all, but I do understand that there are some people with behaviors in their personality where they want you to get to the point. You know, somebody like me would drive them nuts. You know, when I'm passionate about something, I get verbose. I'll talk with you all day, especially if you're a great person to talk with and you're engaging. You and I, we would get along great. So with that, there's some people that their style is get to the point, give me the data, you know, not to stereotype engineers. A lot of them, hey, what's the feature benefit, and give me the data and get out of my way so I can get back and hunker down here. Then there's other people who they're more into the story. They go, okay, well, tell me more. What's the background? Oh, by the way, where are you from and what do you do? And that's the kind of style I am. I'm like, oh, are you from Chicago? You've worked there 8 years. You were the first employee. Like, I love knowing that stuff because you don't know how that'll circle and loop into, hey, we really built some groundwork of relationship. And by the way, the byproduct is maybe a product. We you know, relationship is key. So if I were to say a one word answer to what you asked, it'd be relationship. You asked about communications during pandemic. Okay, be thoughtful. And then you can go from the top of the Christmas tree and branch out as to the foundation of what that means and why, and how do you give tertiary support to that.
Well, and I think, you know, like you talked about, like getting into the details and really understanding some of the nuance can be so important. Kind of turn that back on you, you know, as you were kind of, you know, taking us on that journey of what got you thinking, you know, relationship oriented marketing. You know, I'd maybe refer back to you talked about one of your earlier, you know, stops in your career with GE on the sales side, and the integration between sales and marketing, how important that is. Obviously, things like relationship building and whatnot, really the hallmarks of really any type of sales, but especially B2B, big ticket, consultative selling processes. Relationship is the only way to do it, right? So it's really interesting where it sounds like kind of that route on the sales side for GE may be one of the things that sparks you to think relationship and marketing being so important. I mean, is that sales and marketing alignment in your background there? Is that, you know, one of the drivers that led you to these strong feelings about empathy and marketing and human to human approaches?
Did you just ask me if GE helped me have feelings?
Well,
I'm giving you a hard time.
I'll leave out all the Jack Welch theory and all that. Then we'll talk about that.
You stole my thunder. Yeah, that the residue of his style was still there. With, you know, look to your left, look to your right. Some of you won't be here, and that was, you know, not to show my age. That was a little before my time and my career there, but the residue was there, and so, you know, I think of a couple things with the GE time, price and top line growth, you know, so that was a different vibe. But GE's a larger conglomerate. That's a funny word if you think about it, but, you know, they're a matrix organization with multiple businesses and then units under the division segments and headers. So it really drills down into what you're about in your team. And I'll tell you, at a GE or any larger bureaucratic layered organization, a lot just really depends on who you're around and how you have the culture within your team, within the business. But GE, you know, the almighty meatball logo, they're a decent organization. I learned a lot. I met some great people and learned a lot within that system. So, you know, like anywhere, you have good, bad, and ugly, sweet, sour, or surprise. But not to work backwards, but, you know, you talked about engaging people. I think it comes back to who you are as a person. And I could pin a lot of that to how I grew up. And so I'm not going to it's not life story time, but I would say my faith, which was, you know, I was led down different paths and learned different things through, you know, where we moved growing up, the diverse neighborhoods, to church, and my mom, you know, prayer was a big part of our life. So I'm not going to turn this into church or a religious exercise, but I think there's some interesting alignment with values, whether you're chasing down Jesus or you're into building your spirit through Bible-based godly relationship. I don't go around the workplace with my Bible thumping it on your door, but I think there's some really interesting values I've seen from people that I've interacted with who have had similar upbringing to just a curious pursuit of wanting to be better. And I think that is separated from
and
the workplace, and it shouldn't be separated from who you are. As far as, to me, that's not to, I'm trying to blur the lines in a symbiotic harmony here.
Mhm.
Say that the values from that, if you were to do some comparison or something, that's innovation. Challenging existing systems and doing it respectfully and listening. Trying to remove fear. Your slogan is eternally confident, totally fearless. To me, man, that could be a footnote. Not to make it weird, but we could go there. That could be kind of the way Jesus walked. So, how can you bring who you are appropriately into the workplace and your work? And I've seen and felt how that has paid dividends. And I'm not perfect, neither are you, but you fail forward and you stumble ahead. And I think that who you are, as far as what you bring to your team and how you lead, that's important. And it's not always been perfect. I'm always learning. I know I don't know it all. And so balancing humility here with ambition forward. So starting where you're standing, being present and thankful despite whatever the heck joy, the things are trying to hijack your joy or your progress, and then having that forward, hopeful vision that's clear. And to me, if we're going to kind of loop this together, and you're letting me speak in long form, so thank you.
Oh, that's all right.
Branding, look at, the branding. You think logo, colors, style guides. You
Sounds like you think feel.
How does it make you feel? Nike swoosh, you feel like you could be a athlete. The Apple, you're innovative, you have a cool product that's sleek, simple. I don't want to get into all the case studies, but
Nike makes you want to be like Mike, and Apple makes you want to be a creative wizard.
Yeah. And hopefully you've seen The Last Dance, but there's some things about Mike you don't want to be, and some things you do, and he's a human too. But how do you, and he's a great basketball player, the greatest ever, by the way. Sorry, LeBron, but Mike, there's, that he, here's a rabbit hole. I think MJ inspired the next generations, and so without him, there's
Kobe Bryant
transition.
if you could list them, yeah.
So you asked about how you engage people in markets, and then I love these questions, by the way. And this is relationship. This is what you should do with customers. The very thing we're doing.
Yep.
Not everyone's going to have a podcast or an interview or conversation like this, but that's what you should do with people you're trying to serve. Not just, oh, what's your budget? What if you as I don't like calling you an agency because you're a partner. That's why, I met Dale, learned about your so it feels like a partnership versus an agency that's trying to capture revenue, which you do, and that's a good thing. So it's about that relationship, and whether you're engaging, for us, we're heavy on engineers and buyers. So what's a buyer looking at? Who's your target audience? What's an engineer want and need? Some engineers, like I said, they want, get to the point, give me the data, get out of the way. This fits my specifications and requirements, and you're going to deliver a high quality product on time.
Yep.
Which is great for marketing, so we can talk about that winning example and how we have credibility and trust in the market, because without trust and respect, you have nothing. I don't care if it's a friend, you're married, your coworkers, if you don't have trust and respect with a customer,
Well, yeah,
transactional. You want to be strategic. So I'll end here and I'll shut up so you can.
Yeah, I'm gonna say let's unpack that a little bit, because like going into this, we really want to talk about, right, B2B, but really H to H, human to human marketing. And I think what you really unpacked there, kind of over the last couple minutes, was like the importance of one side of the H, and maybe the selfish or personal side. Though I would say selfishness has nothing to do with it. Is it's important to be authentic to who you are and allow your own feelings, and I think the way you described it, I mean, I'd probably say caring and compassionate are probably two of the core parts of who you pride yourself on. So being authentic to that H, right? The first H in the human to human. But then where you're going there and kind of talking about, hey, we need to think about who's the audience for our content. What are the things that they're passionate about? What are the things that make them tick? Right? And almost reverse engineering. What does the other side of the conversation need? What are they searching for? What are they passionate about? And it sounds like that's kind of what you're describing there, is almost like an intimate customer-centric persona that helps you identify who are we trying to talk to, what do they value. Is that a big part of your process? Am I inferring that correctly?
That's pretty fancy language. Sounds like you're a marketing guy. Is that a little fluffy? No, yeah, you said it very articulately. I think, who cares, right? That's what I step back and challenge. I go, okay, why would anyone care? Why would I care to, and looking at the different vantage points of, okay, well, I think this is a good idea, but let's challenge it. Let's beat this up a little bit. And so you can do that with yourself. It depends on your style, right? As far as what you bring to the table as a leader, and playing on the strengths of your colleagues to get feedback is crucial, and not just assuming that your idea is the almighty salvation of marketing lore. It's ambition. And you're talking about care, you're talking about passion, you're talking about empathy. All this stuff sounds warm and fuzzy. I want to hug right now, but we can't do that, so we'll do the elbows. But
there you go.
I'm all about the hugs, as long as we have trust and respect, of course. But all that stuff sounds cute, but at the end of the day, you're allowed to be assertive and aggressive with your message,
right,
in an appropriate and fitting manner. So in manufacturing and B2B, I like to push that. The people I'm blessed to work with will tell you, okay, you're getting really into the emotional side. Let's step back, and back to the point of how you engage people. That it's neat. You can have that feature benefit side, and then you have the story to it. So I think there's power to speaking life into a certain case study, if you will, or an example of work where, okay, breaking it down in the old car model, context, action, result. And there's people who love the story, people, like I said, people who want the data, and then what's the ROI and value here? What are we doing this for? So stepping back, just in general, aligning all that stuff, taking your ideas, your creative, and the heart that you're bringing to the table. But then, okay, well, that's great. I have this, but ultimately, here's the vision, mission. Does all this, are we doing the right things for the right reason? I don't care what you're doing. This stuff sort of like, I don't want to sound like corporate buzzword bingo here.
Right.
Yeah. If you know who you are and what you believe in, and it's pure, authentic, right, and you're vulnerable within reason about it, I think more people are apt to buy into you, if you will. So
Yes.
Trickery, it's, hey, here's what we're offering. Check this out. How can this serve your needs as a customer, as a team? Because you're still, whether you're B2B or whatever it is, there's a person in front of that email, that computer, and they have feelings, they have their behaviors. So marketing, I always look at is you're being part creative, part strategic, goal-oriented person, because you can't just do all this stuff for pure fun, but there's some ROI there. And then you're also a psychologist, if you will. And some of the best marketers, or even just people I've met, they could know nothing about some financial product or anything, or a technical this, that, the other, but they can walk in anywhere and they can look at a process. This is how I work, and it's helped me. You look at a system, and I'm speaking metaphoric in the processes within it, but also the hardware, the physical stuff, and then the software, what's fueling it. And then I like heart. So hardware, software, and heart. How does that triangulate what this thing is here? And I didn't know jack about the components and solutions, let alone heard about the sweet secret of Standex before I met with them. And
but it sounded like you had the heart component taken care of, and that,
I hope so. It's whatever you're doing, to take the right ground, if you have the right intent, you're humbly listening, and humble can be a funny word. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means, hey, you can step back and be thoughtful, but that ambition, that aggressiveness, you're allowed to go after things. And that's where in manufacturing, marketing, I've done a lot of different things with consumer marketing, nonprofit, startup, big companies, small company, mid-size, no matter what it is, just being rooted in the essence of your brand and what it represents, and how not just worrying about perception, but making sure people understand who you are quickly. And that, hey, okay, we don't have all this time to chit chat, give hugs, high fives, elbow bumps, or whatever you're doing, knuckle punches. Hey, I want to quickly grasp who you are and what you're about, know that I can trust you, understand the service, the solution. You talked about solution selling. I don't care what you label it. You want to talk to the essence of who you are, what you're about, and what you're providing, and what the business case is. A lot of people, whether you're hiring a home contractor to you're doing a major RFQ review, or trying to engage a tier 1 customer or an OEM in manufacturing for business, you need to, it's like any relationship. Do they like you?
right.
So it's funny because we have and I'll end with this and let you talk. Apologize.
No worries.
We have, I was very fortunate to be able to bring the community impact passion I have, an element, I like to integrate faith into whatever I do appropriately in those values. And so I look at community impact. What are you doing more than make money? Really, ask that question, and that gets really interesting real quick. Not anybody can do it, but most companies, they can put something together, refine the OpEx, the processes, and then, put some sales around it, and hopefully really compelling marketing, and make some money. I don't want to minimize the effort of bootstrapping and sleeve rolling to be successful in business, but if you're looking at pure top line growth and bottom line byproduct, then that's great. But what else? And so, it's interesting because I was fortunate to bring my knowledge of community efforts and strategy and nonprofit work. I had a nonprofit during my entrepreneurial days as a consultant on this with a marketing firm. And then wherever I've gone, even as a kid, we were pretty humble. My mom was a social worker for nearly 40 years. And when you grow up in this way with little, but then you're helping people with little, and then you mix that faith, and then you move around and you see diverse environments, you sort of integrate that into how you're wired. And so, taking that and weaving it into your purpose. And I think being able to be at the spot I am now, married with my wonderful wife, Amanda, and my 3 kids, Lily, Remington, and Penelope, I don't think I paused for decades, and I started having conversations like this, like, how did you know that? And where did you learn this? And it's pick up pieces.
It's like another one of those nuggets. We've talked so much about care and compassion. You just mentioned that your mother was a social worker. I mean,
right.
You start to make these connections and really understand. And I think something really hit on there that I think is really interesting for the audience. Kind of when we started this this particular conversation thread, the first thing you said was, who cares, right? And I think that that's really interesting because, you can take that in one way where it's flippant. Yeah, who cares about marketing? But, there's a great book out there, Start With Why and all that. But as you're talking, I'm thinking like, well, maybe why comes second? Maybe first is you got to define who, And,
Yeah, a little bit. I know our buddy Dale loves Simon Sinek. There's a really cool video that a lot of marketers have gone to where he does the archery looking circle.
Yeah.
With why. And I think that's
relevant. Analogy. Yep.
That's relevant to, I think, anything. I thought of this a few years ago, and if it's cheesy, great, I don't care. But, I'm not a marketer who happens to have a family, go to church and do these different things. I am a man of faith who was blessed with marketing ability, and you can debate yourself if I'm good or not, but I think I'm okay. And I've got the resume to prove it, I guess. But at the end of your life, we're here a short time. I don't want to get too philosophical, but you do with your day and your time and the people around you, that affects you. And so I think that there's more important things than, okay, what do you do? What's your job title? And you asked me to introduce myself. I'm not going to make it weird and say, oh, I go to church and I happen to do marketing. We identify each other with job title, company, and then we start looking at each other with, I wonder if they probably make 80 grand, or they make, maybe, I bet they make 200. I bet they make $500,000 plus bonus and this and that and equity and stuff. Our minds start going tactically to identifying people in those frameworks. And
what do they value?
So not to get too off the rails and to bring this together, if you look at B2B marketing, you look at why you do what you do and who your audience is and how you interact with people, what's the story and what's the business case to do work with you? And so the tactical things you can put together that drive that interaction and engagement in whether it's curiosity or going to your website, that's when, right? What's your call to action? Well, you fill out our web form and become a paying customer. There's steps to that. We as marketers, a lot of our value today resides in web analytics and traffic and leads. And we want to be able to puff out our chest and say, we generated, last week we had 100 leads and typically we have 60. And wow, this e-marketing campaign really capitalized on this capability that would optimize efforts for customers. So, all that's great, but you step back and you say, why are you here? You can start with that why. And you mentioned starting with who versus why. I think you start with this isn't selfish, it's for self. I think you start with you and you look at what are you doing with your time and why? Fortunate to have a job, especially in these times, and how do you create value? How do you be more of a producer than just a consumer? And these are things I'm teaching my children, and I have to eat the can of worms I'm opening up. So it's a matter of, to me, it's less about companies and revenue and marketing, which are very important. I don't want to say message, but it's really
right. I mean, it's a necessary part of the component, but I think that's the ends. The means is maybe what's most important. And like I look, you mentioned tactically, like to give the audience a frame on like how you handle this at Standex. I mean, one of the first things you see when you go to the website: partner, solve, deliver. Right.
Oh man, now you're plucking my heartstrings.
Not doing it intentionally, but I feel like all these things, right? Compassion, understanding who you are to understand your customers. It sounds like that partner, solve, deliver is almost like, is that your hallmark and how you communicate that? Where, it's like, hey, we're a partner. We look at your unique challenge, your unique problem, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just assuming here, but that problem and that challenge probably spans beyond an electronics component that goes into their product. That challenge probably is much deeper mean deeper seated, or maybe even, deeper in meaning. Is that right?
Yes, and you did your homework. So good job, Colton. So there's a neat story behind that, as well as, you talked about, again, this caring and relationship, with just, I was young when I was born. That's a silly joke. And so thinking about my journey as a person to the things I've been fortunate enough to be a part of, Standex Cares was something that I got to help create, execute, and commercialize, if you will, with this, as far as our first corporate social responsibility program with our team. And so that didn't happen overnight. So you look at all the steps you've taken as a person throughout different jobs and just what you stand for and what you're about. So, I remember my thought I was going to say a few moments ago, which was company A. They make widgets. They're a fair price, and they deliver okay, and there's minimal errors in the product, no RMAs or returns here and there. Then company B does the same thing. They're about a 7, 8 out of 10 as well. And you look at each other, you're set up in the procurement system. It'd be too much of a hassle to get an alternative, and you're comfortable. So you have company A and company B. But company B drives a culture of community. They are open to allowing volunteer hours with paid time, and they build into the very communities that they reside in as a business. It's neat to look at that, and that's the state of where we're at, which is more popular. Not to make a business case out of community or faith, but I think that there's value there. And so one of the neatest things I've been fortunate to be a part of at Standex is to help create, build, and launch this Standex Cares corporate social responsibility program in a professional framework and way. Of course, taking a little pause with the state of COVID-19, but wherever I've been, that community piece, and it goes back to people, and it goes back to, and I'll loop this into what you just mentioned, which I'm glad you did. That's our slogan now: partner, solve, deliver. And so the funny thing is, I had gone to, I think this was 2014, we had for the Standex Electronics division of Standex. Standex is like a operating holding company, if you will, where we have 5 divisions. We have electronics, hydraulics, engineering technologies, engraving, and the food service group, which is going through some changes. And so for the electronics group, which focuses on sensors and magnetics, but also the design, engineering, tooling, testing, and so forth, to get to the ultimate product creation within a customer's requirements and specs, whether it's standard, high volume, or custom. I was at the largest trade show that happens every 2 years in 2014 at Electronica in Munich. And show, I decided to piggyback that trip with a vacation and hopped around Czech Republic from Munich, and then we went throughout Italy with my then fiance, now wife. And during our time in Florence, my wife wanted to nap, and I don't nap very well. I come up with some of my best ideas outside of work or whatnot. So we're in this B&B in Florence, Italy, really serene. It's middle of the day, no kids, so we're able to nap without distraction. And I woke up and I had these thoughts just swirling, integrating, and it turned into, wow, what if we brought this program around community to Standex? Because that's who we are. And I had just broken down and did some brand recognition and art and science work, if you will, that I was able to bring to the table from my consulting days. I had what you call a dig process. You analyze, you listen, feedback, and proceed to producing some ideas that are fitting to a business for brand recognition. And then, the follow-up to that is immersion, where you integrate and bring the ideas to life through tactical methods. And what had happened through that process, which I did on vacation in Park City, Utah. So I guess I should go on vacation more because I come up with ideas.
Yeah, it's very fitting that you figured out how to integrate art, science, and community in Florence. I mean, there's a famous guy, Vinci or something.
Not Kentucky, Italy. So you gotta, if you want good ideas, go to Italy and drink wine in the countrysides and take a nap. But no, that stuff doesn't just happen. And that great marketing doesn't just occur magically. Sometimes you might, but some of the best marketing that looks simple and just really nails it took a lot of work, so
it came from the collective journey and the people behind it, right?
Yeah, and there's different things you might be inspired by, or you learn at a training somewhere. You just never know. So to wrap this up and move on, the community side had this idea. Then while my wife was sleeping, I put together a PowerPoint slide because that's what the world needs. Another marketer and more PowerPoints. I formalized the ideas on paper, if you will, in the slide deck for Debbie, who was our chief legal officer, the former CEO at Standex, as well as Tom DeBile, the former CFO. And I presented this to them and they said, yeah, we've been thinking of this, and wow, you really captured it, which made, I love affirmation. I was floating out of my own self. And that, from there, long story skinny, we brought it to life. And then same with Partner Solve Deliver. I was thinking again of how do we work? How do you describe to somebody, what's a good litmus test, right? You're on the elevator. What's your elevator speech? Or you're in a cab, somebody sits down, or you're on a plane. Oh, hi. What's the typical thing other than not talking to each other for a couple hours, and then at the end while you're landing, they go, oh, what's your name? And you're like, whoa. So a lot of people, you're on a plane. Hi, how are you? Oh, I'm Brian. Where are you from? What do you do? And then, oh, what is Standex? What do they do? And it's like, holy smokes, how do I tell you this?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We're
product story.
Yeah, we're a manufacturer. A good way to say, we're like a small GE kind of company with 5 divisions. We were near $1 billion market cap. Now we're around 786 mil. We have these 5 divisions with their business units and their products and capabilities. I've already put you to sleep, right? So I thought, if I'm sitting next to you, could I inspire you to care? And so in a simple but clear way. And so, work for a manufacturer. I get to lead marketing efforts with a really great team. And what does Standex do? Well, make different technical products and have these capabilities. We really partner to solve problems and for engineers to deliver quality, whether solution. And so then your mind can kind of go, so you kind of team up with people to solve problems and deliver whatever widget or whatever. So that's how it was born. And then again, I framed that out, presented it to the team, and they said, wow, this really makes sense. And so floated out of the room again and felt really proud of myself and that it worked. And by the way, not every marketing idea has been flowed out of the body affirming situation or experience, by the way. But for Standex, those were 2 that stand out between the community, but then Partner Solve Deliver stuck. And then the new CEO that came in, he thought it was fitting. So then that blanketed around, so it's become our slogan. And you can partner, solve, and deliver in the kitchen at home to the workplace to a marketing campaign. But it really summarized, that engineering focus, conquering challenges for customers. That's how you serve. That's the value you bring. And then the output is this quality thing. So it's neat. It's nice that you brought that up. And there's some meaning to that. And it really fits the type of business and platforms we have and the businesses that we serve and how we work. So you're right. You're very keen to recognize that Colton, as far as, yes, it's more than a slogan, it's how we work.
Right. Well, and I think that that's so important, right? Because that really helps you cut through. I mean, you talked about, getting caught in marketing jargon and all this. It's so easy to do, and features and benefits, anybody can bring that to the table. But when you can position yourself as the company that really, one thing that always, kind of similar when I have those plane conversations, it's like, oh, I market for technical products companies. People are like, yeah, it's kind of boring. It's like, well, really what we do is help people solve problems quick so they can get back to their real lives and what's important most. And we help synthesize that journey and that experience to get people back to what's important. And that's something that I take very seriously. And I'm a digital marketer, right? So people always ask me, like, well, as long as there are engineers that have a mission critical process failure that they need to fix so they can get home, digital marketing is going to be good. And that's what it's all about, really, is like empowering people. And it sounds like that's almost your messaging strategy in many ways, is how do you empower people in a compassionate way?
Yeah, digital's just a pathway to do that.
Right.
And digital is more important now than ever, especially in marketing. You don't have a website, you don't exist. But if you don't interact with people, you don't have depth. And technical products can be exciting too. There's so many things out there that, when you think back to how, as a kid, you see, growing up, you see Pepsi and Coca-Cola, that battle. You see the different brands that are just commercialized and advertised more than anything. And you don't come across, a Standex on billboards or television commercials. And so it's interesting to look at, if you're considering what you want to do for a career, in the ad space, Leo Burnett and Chiat Day, all these kind of big fancy firms, and then whether they're throughout New York or LA or Chicago, you can still do marketing and be exciting in whatever the space. And so it's interesting to look at, hey, when you're doing marketing, go out there and look at job postings and ads. What are the requirements to do that job? And back in the day, it would probably read something like generate awareness through this and help do that around PR. Now it's SEO, digital expert, and all the things I mentioned earlier, lead management and generation. By the way, you have to be able to use InDesign and Photoshop and be a master with that. And oh, by the way, build and grow accounts, and here's our values that you need to fit, by the way. And so it's really the landscape of not only the world has shifted, but how you market and how you share your message on and offline.
But how do you take all those technical aspects and package that up in a way that is emotionally and impactful on human beings, right? And I think that, like I said, all somebody has to do is go right to standexelectronics.com. You don't even have to scroll, and you see what makes Standex a human-focused organization. Right from the
yeah, which a lot of the folks who have been around the company 15, 20 plus years, that change was different for them. And so being able to almost operate like a consultant with our team within the business in a way and influence the ecosystem of what we're doing. And, that goes to organizational culture, being open to ideas and change and not just doing the same old. No matter where you're at, you have to be able to challenge that and be heard. And, not every idea is going to be a winning one, but you should beta that and test it. We didn't have any e-commerce like tools. I got to help build that. Julie on our team, helped really lead that charge, and I got to ride her coattail, if you will, and help bring that to life. And we never had that. We didn't have a community program. We didn't have, one of the big asked for me as far as goals before I accepted the role that I'm in was, oh, we've grown a lot through acquisition, or, you know, we also grew through new accounts, current accounts, geographic expansion, new technology and products, and then M&A, you know, bolting on these acquisitions. But with that, you inherit websites. So close one down and put the products, there's the process to that integration. And so one of the big ones was this Metter company in the electronics group, integrating that website into the current, the other one that they were at. There's a lot that goes into that, and being thoughtful, and, oh, what message, are we a house of brands or a branded house, and all these things. How does the website reflect who you are, finding your products, and, oh yeah, I want to be able to contact you quickly because I don't want to read through all this fluffy stuff. And so we're ironically redoing the website again. I feel like we just did that. And Standex has over 20 websites with all these businesses and whatnot. So you want that consistency from the high level and the corporation, but then also within the businesses, reflecting what you just said. We care about our customers, we partner, solve, deliver, here's how you find us. And so interesting, look how the world has changed, marketing has adjusted, even right now with doing virtual trade shows, cases, and so forth. You have to really just, again, this goes back to who you are. You have to be open to change, agile, and evolve and adapt, right? So that if you aren't like that as a person, you're going to struggle. And so that doesn't mean you have to change everything about who you are. It just means, hey, let's make some adjustments to really build the right message and engage in an optimal manner.
Well, like you said, it all starts with really understanding who you are and then building alignment off of that, right? And, you know, you mentioned like the introduction of partner, solve, and deliver, you know, and how that went out externally. You know, maybe this is probably a whole podcast in and of itself. I think we'll have to get one with you and Dale talking about this topic real soon. But how, you mentioned like that was a change organizationally. What are the things you saw happen internally? I mean, was there, you know, I'm sure everybody was doing a great job with this before, but was there an increased focus on customer centricity and reaching out more and more conversation, or did one alter the other, or what did that look like?
That's a really cool question. I think it was a mix. Like a lot of places or with people, there's, oh, I've heard about this, we should do that. You know, as a marketing team, one of the neat tricks of the trade is how can you take, say you put together a case study or some sort of content piece, how can you recycle that for multiple use on web, a blog, and then with algorithms and SEO, you don't want to just copy and paste and repeat because then you get dinged for that. So how do you leverage the algorithms, the measurements, and then produce content that can be multi-purpose? You know,
You need something.
there's, and you're asking about how did you, let me step back. I started going down a tactical rabbit hole of
All right.
resources that you produce with B2B, and just to tap into that, you know, we do product pieces from flyers to application briefs and notes to case studies. And then how can you, you know, just to kind of hit on where I was going with that is the content there. But I'll go back to your question. So I think the business was at a state of, they had grown to a point of some changes were clearly due. And so part of that marketing position that was available was, hey, you know, part of that is doing some of the traditional stuff. And then as a leader, influencing change, and change can have some obstacles. So, you know, developing those internal partnerships, listening to each other. And it was time for making some adjustments to the website. So I stepped into the business with, they were anticipating a need for that and wanted it. Whereas at other places, that might not be ready. So it's part of your job to, you know, bring the energy of pushing for that change within the right ways. Then you get into politics and people's feelings and pride and control. And So I'm a high accountability, low control guy. That's my style with my team. I'm not going to hover over your shoulder. You're on the team because you have a strength that we need, and we're going to use that. And wherever you're weak, we're going to polish it together. Same for me. And so to your point of what prompted some of this stuff being created, some of it was out of ideas and bringing it to the table. I think wherever you work, whether you're from the plant floor to the front office, I'm big on in manufacturing kind of uniting those spaces physically, not as much, but as far as just people and awareness and inclusion and interaction, they're doing the hard work. You don't exist without their efforts. And so in these facilities, Dean Houston, you focus on B2B manufacturing, but you also have other customers in your wheelhouse. But as you may have seen, and many people experience in these, whether it's GE to Standex or others, you have the front office space, the nice fancy offices outside there's cubicles, and then there's a plant, and there's separation.
Yep.
One of the things I like to make sure I do is blend those appropriately and go out to the plant floor, say hi, interact, because you know what, you're going to get ideas from them.
Well, and you take it back to something you've hit on a few times already, is like that. The importance is, we talked about the who cares and the why, but maybe it starts with you. But when you look at an organization, I mean, it is one whole, right? And to know yourself, you need to understand what everybody else in your organization is going through. So like that idea, I think there's a lot of gold right there, Brian. And I think that's something our audience can really take away with, is like marketing cannot exist within a silo. It obviously needs to be very integrated with sales, but it also needs to be emboldened by a deep understanding of the business as a whole and who makes it up. So like by saying, hey, I like to break down maybe those artificial barriers that might exist in some places so that everybody understands each other. I mean, it sounds obvious, but I think that's something we forget a lot about as marketers, especially when we're in a room with other marketers, is the importance and value of everything around us. I think that right there might be worth the price entry for the audience. That's a huge
Yeah, go out and say hi with your mask on to your hardworking colleagues, and get out of your office and listen to the people that are, making the widgets. And yeah, not every part of that's culture and friendliness, but the other part, I've garnered a lot of intel through hallways, not water cooler talk, just simply listening. Hi, how are you? Oh, what do you do here? What does that machine do right there? Oh, we should talk about that.
I'm an expert on this specific part of this specific component, but this is why that component is so important and so instrumental, right? It begets all those conversations that lead to more in-depth product understanding, and I don't know how, as a technical products marketer, you do it without talking to everybody. I couldn't fathom it, but I do. I think that's something that is very much taken for granted. And, again, it goes back to, to loop it all back, that caring and compassion, it seems to be rooted in kind of your philosophy as a leader, and how that creates so much value. Now, I think we got a ton of insights on that. And I know we're coming up to, close to 45 minutes here. We clearly got to get something with you and Dale, because I think you guys cut from the same cloth on a lot of this stuff. So I think the audience can definitely look forward to that. But Brian, we've uncovered some really profound things here. But if I had to challenge you to one quick statement for the audience, what should they walk away with is marketing, or maybe even just business leaders? I mean, what would you say if you had a platform to one sentence for everybody? What's the one thing you'd want to take away from, Brian Siegel?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a big one.
A quick round. Oh, wow. We're as great as we help others become. I would say in the footnote that's my one sentence, but to explain around that, apply that to yourself. Chronic, try to be better each day. Start where you're standing. We get monkey mind and cloudy in our heads. Step back, breathe, start where you're standing, bloom where you're planted. Challenge, okay, what's true or not here? how can I bring good energy, not hijack or let my joy be hijacked? And how can I just help others become better, whether it's yourself, your team, and also your customers? And then that really calibrates the steps you take. And we're human beings, you know, we might need 1 or 2 more cups of coffee than the next person, take a walk around the building, get some fresh air, go exercise. But that human, just to integrate, have a message that all ties together, you know, take care of yourself and each other, and be courageous with challenging things, but also respectful and generate trust with relationships. So that's what I mean by,
You're as great as you help others.
good as we help each other be, have each other's back and lift each other up. And that's whether you're a Standex, Dean Houston, or before you take a deep breath and remove the stress from it, either a great 10 out of 10 day or a challenging day at work, and just be thankful and then repeat. So that's more of the personal style. And I think if you do those things, you know, like I'm trying to build into and cover my children with, I have to do the same things I'm encouraging them to. So talk about humble ambition. So, you know, that's a large footnote to that. And I wasn't prepared, but there you go.
No, I always joke about this, but at some point in the episode, we always identify that pull quote that becomes the title for the podcast. And I think you're only as great as what you help others become. And I think that's an incredible way to sum up that human-to-human marketing philosophy and why it is important, you know, is because especially in B2B, you know, you have to help other people be great. You have to help other businesses be great. Otherwise, where's the value you add, you know?
Yeah, that might be a second headline under that. It's a big title, but I think, not to create a second podcast within the podcast and to wrap up nicely. Yeah, it's purpose, it's mission, but you know, you can work hard, play hard, have fun, get things done, but it really goes back to, you know, every day can be a bit of an adventure if you let it in. So it's I don't know, to market for the marketers, who cares?
Right.
Question mark, and all that just goes under, you know, all that other fun stuff. But no, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you and Ron and the team for all that you do.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Brian. I know I've gotten a lot out of this conversation. I know the audience will say the same. To the audience out there, we'll see you next time. But Brian, look forward to more conversations.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. So if you get a headache, sorry, but if you garner one nugget, you're welcome. But thank you.
Have a great one, Brian.
You too.